You ever watch a man who thinks he's holding the reins, when all along he's just a horse? Well, I seen it plenty. Hell, I seen it up close. A fella walks into a room, chest puffed out, like he's the biggest goddamn grizzly in the woods. Talks loud, talks tough, thinks he's dealing from the top of the deck. See the real players? They don't raise their voices. They don't need to. Take a man like Trump. Walks into a meeting thinking he's a shark in the water. But every other son of a bitch in that room's already smelled the blood. It ain't theirs. Putin? Hell, the man plays chess 3 moves ahead while Trump's still trying to figure out what the horsey piece does. Kim Jong-un? That kid had him smiling like a schoolboy, showing off letters like they was love notes. And Xi? Well, Xi just sit back and watch like a rancher letting a steer walk itself to slaughter. They all knew what he was. A man who needed to be flattered. A man who needed to win even when he was losing. So they'd pat him on the back and they'd shake his hand real firm and they'd tell him he was strong and smart and believable. And by God, he'd eat it up like a hog in a trough. They didn't even have to twist his arm. They didn't have to play dirty. All he had to do was just let him talk. Let him dig his own hole. And then act surprised when he fell in. And the saddest part, he still don't know. He thinks he played him. He thinks he won. Well, history's got a long memory, friend. When it writes this chapter, it won't be the tale of a king. It'll be the tale of a pawn. Now, here's the thing about being a pawn. Most folks don't even know they are one. They move where they're told, they do whatever they're meant to, never once asking why. But this one was different. See, a good pawn keeps his mouth shut. Knows the game ain't about him. Knows the real players don't say everything they're thinking. It ain't about truth. It ain't about lies. It's about muddying the waters. But Trump, he'd hear something in a meeting, some slick little line whispered in his ear, and the next day he'd be out on that stage, parroting it back word for word. No filter, no finesse, just regurgitating whatever the last man told him. They fed him his lines like a dog gets scraps from the table, and every time he'd gobble it up and go running back to tell the world what a good boy he was. He'd float a story, something deniable, something a smart man would keep tucked away, and then the next thing you know, he's out there on live TV just saying it out loud. Hell, I remember the time they asked him about Russia. Wasn't even a tough question. The smart man would have danced around it, thrown up some smoke, moved on to the next thing. But old Don, nah, he just stood there and looked straight in the camera and said, "Russia, if you're listening." Now that right there, that's the kind of thing that gets a man played like a damn fiddle. Ain't nobody has to blackmail you if you just go out there and say the part they need kept quiet. And the worst part, ain't like he was forced to do it. He wasn't reading off no hostage note. You just don't know the difference between being a mastermind and being a mouthpiece. But the real players, they know. And they know a man like that, a man who can't keep the quiet part quiet, ain't worth nothing but what he can be made to say. The second he stops being useful, well, you ever seen a pawn at the end of the game? Now, if this was just about one man, you could all sleep a little easy. But it ain't. It never was. See, Trump ain't the disease. He's just a symptom. He ain't the first man to stumble his way into power without knowing the first damn thing about what he was doing, and he won't be the last. Once upon a time, a man in charge had to know something. It didn't matter if he's a king, or a senator, or a general, or a lawman. You had to have wisdom. You had to read the books, study the maps, listen to the ones who spent their whole damn lives learning what you didn't know. But that's all gone now. Replaced by something meaner. Something dumber. We live in a time where a man ain't judged by what he knows, but by how loud he can shout. Where thinking too hard makes you an elitist, and knowing too much makes you untrustworthy. Hell, we used to admire smart folks. Scientists, historians, men who built bridges and put rockets in the sky. Now we got a whole damn culture that would rather listen to some rich fool in a baseball cap tell them the earth is flat. And who profits off that? Not the workers, not the families just trying to get by, not the teachers struggling to keep up while the system tears itself apart. Nah, it's the ones at the top, the private elite. Men with no expertise, no experience, no damn clue what they're doing, but just enough money to buy their way into the room. They don't gotta be smart, they just gotta be rich. Gotta own enough of the world that no one can tell them no. So they laugh at the scientists, they call the professors radicals, they tell them the real enemy ain't the ones pulling the strings, but the ones trying to cut them. And the people, hell, they eat it up. Because it's easier to trust a man who sounds like you, even if you don't know a damn thing, than to admit the world's more complicated than you ever imagined. And so the game keeps going. The rich get richer, the dumb get louder, and the smart get silenced. And the pawns, they march across the board thinking they're free, thinking they're fighting a good fight, never realizing they were never playing the game. They were the game. You know, folks like to paint Trump as some renegade, a wild card, a man fighting his own battle. But the truth is as plain as the setting sun. He's a pawn, driven by cold hard cash and personal survival. The man's got compromat piled higher than a stack of unpaid bills, dirt so deep it'd sink a battleship. Every outrageous word, every outlandish scheme he breathes out is a desperate bid to keep his own secrets locked away. He's so damn gullible, he'll gobble up any line fed to him by those who pull the real strings. Now let's talk about those puppet masters. Elon Musk, that man don't fire for word unless he's engineered to shake up the cosmos. Peter Thiel, every syllable he utters is a calculated move, while his Palantir empire watches every step you take, making sure no move goes unseen. And Netanyahu, that old fox has been pulling strings in the shadows long before most of us even learned our ABCs. That's not to mention Putin still waiting in the wings. They set the stage, they write the script, and then they hand Trump the lines about taking over Gaza, resettling Palestinians, and spouting praise for the very men who control the game. But here's a real kicker. Trump's motives aren't driven by anything noble. They're fueled by money and self-preservation, a desperate scramble to keep his own skeletons hidden, all the while dancing like a marionette for those truly in power. And that, my friends, is where you come in. You're not just spectators in this grand theater of deceit. If you're tired of watching the rich get richer and the truth getting buried, it's high time you stood up and did something about it. If you're ready to stop being a pawn, stop playing the game on your own terms, the time is now. The true power isn't in the hands of a single man or a shadowy cabal. It's with you. Let's flip the script, expose the lies, and remind the puppet masters that the people aren't so easily controlled. Remember, the game only continues if you let it. It's time to take your stand. This is Section 8, signing off.